Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jessica, and today I would like to talk about something a little bit different from the lists of romantic books that you see so much at this time of year. I would like to make a list of books that contain my personal favorite trope, and that is the found family trope. So as much as in February we want to celebrate romantic love, I think that we also need to be celebrating other types of love, and I think the love that comes along with not just a biological family, but also a chosen family is so very special. And I love books that celebrate that. They are some of my favorite things. If a book has a really good found family in it, it's going to be something I'm always going to point out, something I really love, and it's just something that always hits for me. I don't know if that's because I personally am an only child, so I don't have sibling kind of relationships within my own family, so I've always found myself gravitating to these kind of little found family groups. And it's just something so special. And I am so glad to be able to highlight some books that do a really great job of bringing that to light today. So the first book I would like to highlight is one of my favorite books of all time. And that book is Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. So Station 11 is the story of a group of survivors of a flu apocalypse that happens. This takes place about 20 years after the flu has happened, and we follow a band of traveling artists and musicians and actors called the Traveling Symphony, who travel around a part of the former US and basically try to bring art and music and drama and Shakespeare to all of these people. The thing that I really love about this book is kind of the motto of the book, and that is survival is insufficient, which is actually a line that was taken from an episode of Star Trek Voyager, the most underrated Trek. That is a different video, but said by 7 of 9, also very underrated. But in this book, survival is insufficient. It's not enough to just survive. We have to have the things that go along with it. And the found family in this book is actually that band of traveling artists. I loved them. I loved the characters. I love the relationships they form. I love what it has to say about the way that art and music and drama can bring us all together and make us human and make us one family, even when everything that we have had has been ripped away. I think it's fantastic. There are 3 books that are kind of loosely set in this universe by this author. You don't have to read them all, but I would definitely start with this one. It is, in my opinion, the best one, and just such a fantastic read and one of my favorite books of all time. I can't recommend it highly enough. Definitely check it out. The next book I would like to highlight is Light from Uncommon Stars by Rika Aoki. This book came out a few years ago and it did not win nearly enough awards for how fantastic it is. It is a science fiction fantasy hybrid book, I would say. Do you like the idea of aliens who run a donut shop and are kind of funny? Do you like the idea of violin prodigies who have to sell their soul to the literal devil in order to become the best at playing the violin? Do you like the idea of yet another book that I'm going to recommend about music? This one also does a great job of explaining and talking about music in a way that feels very real. You can tell that the author knows what they're talking about. I'm a musician, and it drives me crazy when books about music don't have anything to do about music. So this book is fantastic. The found family aspect comes from all of these different characters coming together to help out this violin prodigy who I mentioned and form this found family. It's very strange. It's one of the weirdest books I think I've ever read, but I think it's definitely worth reading. And the found family trope is excellent, and it's both funny and heartbreaking at the same time. So this is another one that I would definitely recommend checking out. So next I'm going to recommend a book that is the first book in a fantasy trilogy, and that book is Foundryside by Robert Jackson Bennett. This series is, I would say, primarily a heist story, at least the first volume. We follow Sansa, and she is a character who has a friend who is a talking sentient key. Okay. The magic system in this world has to do basically with talking to inanimate objects, at least she does, and convincing them that things that they think are true are not true, or vice versa, and therefore altering reality. So that's how the magic works. It's very unique. It's very different. In terms of the found family trip, so Sansa, she's kind of like a lonely thief, and she manages to meet up with this ragtag group of people. We've got a old scriver who's very funny, a scrivener, sorry, who's very funny. Scriveners are the ones who do the magic in this world. We have his apprentice, and we have a kind of disgraced noble who is kind of brooding, and I really enjoy him. I just really, really love this book, particularly the first one. I haven't actually read the third book in the series yet, but it's a great found family trope. It's a good time. It's a heist story. If you haven't read any Robert Jackson Bennett, this would be a decent one to start with. He's one of my favorite fantasy authors, and I always recommend his books super highly, and I would check this one out. My next recommendation is going to be a Brandon Sanderson novel. Brandon Sanderson does found family very well. I would say that both the Stormlight Archive and Mistborn have some really good examples of found family within them. But I'm actually going to recommend Tress of the Emerald Sea. Tress of the Emerald Sea is the story of Tress, and she is a young girl who falls in love with the son of kind of like one of the noble families of the island where she lives. But to her sadness, he is taken away by his parents to find a rich woman to marry. They go on a voyage over the seas. The seas are very complicated, but I won't explain that in this. And he is kidnapped by an evil sorceress, and so naturally she has to set out to rescue him. She finds her way onto a ship, and I can tell you that the other people on this ship, the sailors, etc., they do not like Tress. They do not trust her. They do not want her to be there. It does not go well for her at first, but eventually she is able to win them over, and they form a beautiful little found family unit. I absolutely love this book. I find it super heartwarming. It just really worked for me, and I thought the found family was actually the best part of it. I mean, there is a romance, but I'm going to be honest, I didn't care about the romance, but I cared about that found family, and I cared about what happened to them, and I thought that this book was so good, especially in that aspect. And it's a good place to start with Sanderson, I feel like, especially because you're not getting yourself into anything. It is part of his larger universe, the Cosmere, but you do not have to have read any of those books before you read this. You could absolutely start here. The next book I have for you is going to be Floating Hotel by Grace Curtis. This is a library copy. I don't know how well it's going to show up on camera. So I would recommend this to people who are fans of Becky Chambers and her Wayfarers series. I actually liked this more than I liked the Wayfarers series, but I think that if you do like those books, it would definitely scratch that same kind of itch. It is a standalone. And for me, let me see if I can explain. Did anyone else? So I was too young to have watched The Love Boat, the TV show, when it was originally on the air, but did anybody else watch in reruns? Because it was on cable like all the time, and I was sort of obsessed with it. The Love Boat, the idea is you've got this cruise ship and you've got these characters who'll come on and be passengers for like one episode, and they'll have some kind of a problem going on, usually with their love life or something, and the crew will help them solve it. And it's always like some C-list celebrity. And that's what this book reminded me of a little bit, but with a whole lot fewer members of the cast of the Brady Bunch on it. I just thought it was so good. So we're following the story of a spaceship that is a floating hotel. It's kind of flying on this predetermined route in space. Our main character is the hotel manager, Carl. Carl has a history that we learn about over time, and we follow various passengers and members of the crew, and they each get their own little chapter where we get their backstory. The overarching story is something about government corruption and the government trying to figure out who's, telling all their secrets and that kind of thing. And that was interesting, but I was really there for the found family, and the found family in this book is so fantastic. I do not think I saw enough people reading it. It came out last year, seemed to kind of come and go very quickly. Not a lot of people read it, and I would recommend checking it out, especially if when I said, do you like Becky Chambers? You were like, yes, I like Becky Chambers. I think you would like this book. If you've run out of Wayfarers books, this would be where I would go. I just think it's really good. Okay, next I'm going to recommend you a really, really long series, and that is going to be The Expanse by James S.A. Corey. I have the first book here, which is Leviathan Wakes. I really, really love this series. I haven't actually finished the whole thing yet. I'm on book 5 out of 9 now. And for me, it is a very specific itch that I think it scratches at this point. And I would describe it as kind of like the Star Trek thing where you're always following the same people. You've got this crew. You've got James Holden and his 3 members of his crew who he travels with everywhere. They go to a different planet or a different situation in every episode or book, and they are trying to solve some kind of problem for the people or the aliens there. Feels very Star Trek-y, but way less utopian than Star Trek. There's a lot more bad stuff. But it just felt like that same kind of thing. And the comfort of being with those same characters and getting to know them over time and loving them and seeing them in these different situations, I think that's what I really love about these books more than anything else. I think they're good. I don't think they're amazing literature, but at the same time, I just always have such a good time with them. And I'm kind of stringing the series out. I think I don't want to read too many at once because then I'm going to run out and I'm going to miss these characters so much. So proving that you're never too old to make a newfound family, we have The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. So I am well known for being pretty obsessed with this series. I really, really love everything about it. I love the fact that Richard Osman is not afraid to have his older characters be actual fully formed people and not just caricatures or just sweet doddering old things the way that so often older people are treated in books. I do work at a retirement home, so this probably has a very specific kind of meaning for me in the sense that like people who live within these communities really do form their own found families, especially if they don't have an involved family or people that they can depend on. They're able to form these found families within these communities. And Thursday Murder Club is of course about a group of elderly people who form a murder club and actually end up solving some real murders as opposed to the fake ones that they were planning on solving. It's very funny, but it's also really hard-hitting and touching and talks about a lot of things having to do with getting older and what that means, especially this first book. There's a lot of emotional stuff in here as well. The found families, so we have Elizabeth, Joyce, Ron, and Abraham, and they are four friends who would do anything for each other, but also get on each other's nerves and are really there for each other, even when their families are not. And I just found it tremendously touching. And we are on book, I think he's about to release book 5, and there's about to be a movie, and I'm so excited. I cannot wait for that. I just love this series, and I think a lot of it is that situation, that found family, these people who aren't related to each other, but know they always have each other to count on. Next, I have another mystery, and that is one I actually just read, and that's going to be Lavender House by Lev Rosen. Lavender House is the story of a detective named Evander Mills who has been fired from the police force because he was found out at a gay club, which in 1950s San Francisco would obviously not have been okay with them. He ends up taking a case as a private detective for this real found family, like a legitimate found family of queer people in San Francisco in the 1950s who have made the family for themselves that their own families could not be. And the mystery was really interesting. I really enjoyed that. That is a series now where he's working with this same community with marginalized people, and I'm really interested in reading those. But this first one, the found family aspect within this family just really worked for me. I just love the idea of these people who made their own family and made their own community because the wider society did not accept them. And I think that's one of the things that I really like about the found family trope is the idea that it doesn't matter if society's not going to accept you, that there are going to be people who are going to be there for you and make you feel like you have a family and you have a home. I think that's why it's such a comforting trope. And this is a really good mystery. If you have not read it and you like mysteries, I would definitely recommend it. And next we have Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher. Now I could have chosen like literally any of T. Kingfisher's books because they're all amazing. And they almost all have this found family trope because it's something that I feel like she is so good at. This one in particular is about Mara. Mara is a princess who has been sent to live at a convent, but she is running away from the convent because she must save her sister who is married to a prince who is not a nice prince. She's got to save him. She's going to find him. She's ready to kill him. And so she goes on this journey, and most of the book is on her journey on the road. She meets up with a witch who has a chicken, who has a demon inside of it. She meets a fairy godmother who's actually not so much good at blessings, but really good at curses. And she meets a disgraced kind of barbarian warrior kind of guy. And she meets a dog who was made of bones. His name is Bone Dog. He is the best boy ever. I love him and I feel nothing bad about him. But this book is really good. I always tell to people, the first 30% of this book is a little slow. So you need to get past it. Get through the first 30% and then they'll be on their journey and you will fall in love with these characters and the family that they form for each other on the road and The ending is so satisfying, and I just really, really love this book, and I would highly recommend it. Okay, now we have my final found family recommendation, and that's actually going to be 2 books, so you get 2 in 1, because I think you need to read them both. And that's going to be the Six of Crows duology by Leigh Bardugo. So I'm going to show you these copies if they'll show up. I think they're showing up. So I have these collector's editions that I just got, that Sean got me for Valentine's Day because he knew how much I love these books. I just read Crooked Kingdom in December and I was obsessed with it. It is the story, I mean, people will say that these books are heist stories, and they are heist stories, but for me, it was the found family. It was this group of people who found each other and made this family, and I was obsessed with them. And I would definitely recommend reading them both. So this is the story of Kaz Brecker. He is a criminal mastermind at 17. All the characters are 17, but seem like they're 35. It's fine. And he is basically going on the heist of his career at the beginning of the first book. And there is a lot of stuff that happens. He forms his crew, the people that are going to help him on this heist. They pick up more people along the way. Then we have the second book with the same people and in a different place and what happens with them. The second book really tells more of their backstories. And that's the thing that really got me to buy into the found family trope, which is why I say you really need to read both. The first one didn't work quite as well with me for that. There was a lot of action, but less found family. And the second book had a lot more found family, but they are fantastic. I think that they're Leigh Bardugo's best work. And probably my ultimate found family recommendation right now, to be honest, would be this duology. If you love a found family trope and you have not read the Six of Crows duology, I do not know what you were doing, because they are so fantastic. And I think you should definitely read them. If you haven't read them, yeah, what are you doing? What are you doing? They are so good. All right, and there you have it, my top 10 current found family books. I'm sure I'm going to revisit this list in a couple of years, and I'm going to have all new books because I love found family so much. It is my favorite trope. Please leave me a comment and let me know your favorite found family stories, because I'm always looking for more and I would really like some more to read. I hope that you all have a fantastic day, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.